Joe. It is our second session, so we have one more session after this before you get into the Cleveland Open, and then we'll do a recap after that when you get back. And then, of course, so basically we have 2 weeks left of communication and leading up to the event, and then of course I'll be available while you're there. But let's just get a recap of how this last week went.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Played both Wednesday and Thursday at my local. The goal overall was to finish with a 9.75 PPR overall. After rounders on Wednesday, I think it was a 10.08, so felt
Nice.
pretty good about that. And then I think I finished at a 9.48 PPR, so I was very, very happy about that. Just missed goal by a little bit.
Yep.
And then Thursday, took top PPR at 10.17 after rounders, and then slipped down to, I think, like a 8.89 or an 8.9 something. So struggled pretty good throughout bracket play. I think I threw in the sevens both times, and did not really get down on myself, which was another goal. Did not use the phrase "my fault, my bad" at all, even though I really wanted to and was kind of conditioned to do that. And then, just kind of worked on my phrases there. There wasn't a time when I was super duper upset. I mean, I think, as you had alluded to, I just kind of went and had fun. So even though I was throwing well below what I had done previously in rounders, I had a good time, met some new people, and really enjoyed myself, and came out of both of those nights, I think, in a better spot mentally.
That's great, because a lot of people will tell me that, oh, I can't have fun if I'm not winning. I can't have fun if I'm not throwing my best. And I totally get that.
Yeah.
I can understand why we would feel that way, because if you're going in with the intention of, I want to perform well, and then you don't, you're going to be frustrated. And it's so hard to go in and say, what if I didn't focus on my performance? What if I just focused on literally hanging out, having fun, and being social, and just see whatever happens? And if you can do that, then you can have fun with no matter your performance.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so it was a different mindset. I plan on doing that again tomorrow at the local. Getting together later on this evening with a buddy of mine. We're just going to throw up my local gym, so nothing too formal or anything, and just basically practicing good habits, both when I see a bag in a certain spot on the board, what shot, and that was the other thing I had my mind made up before I threw my bag. So if I was running bags with a partner, it was, all right, let's just go in. If I saw a bag lane side and I was throwing outside, I was going to go around it, or if it was my side, I was going to throw a reverse cut. And worst case scenario, if I came up short, it was going to be a side by side. So I had that in my mind before I threw any of the bags, and that really helped to just simplify it, I think, is the best way to put it. Not trying to do anything outside the book. Just, okay, I've seen this 100 times. This is the throw. This is the grip. Make it happen. And for the most part, it worked really, really well.
Did you feel like you're able to stay in that more automated place going in with that game plan?
That's a great question. I think it kind of depends on maybe who I'm throwing against. And I don't know if that necessarily should be the case. For instance, I know there are certain players who like the roll bag. So I know instantly there's going to be a dirty board, or they're going to try to throw a block, because they're going to block, roll, and then collect is going to be the name of their game. So I try to adapt, or try to think, okay, how can I counterbalance that? Or, okay, I really have to be on with my cut bags, with my airmails, if there's going to be a bag right in front of the hole every single time. And I've not really thought about, okay, let me be the dictator. I kind of base it on what who my opponent is going to be. And then there's other people, yeah, and you've probably seen them, where they throw nothing but slick sides. So they're not throwing any blocks. They're just going to run. And so my thought is like, okay, if they're going to miss the hole, they're probably going to be throwing nines and sixes because the bag's too fast. So I can just play a normal game. But if they're going to run bags and score continuous tens and 12s, then maybe I need to throw up a block. And so maybe now that I'm in that mindset, maybe it's, should I be the one to dictate how the match is going to go right from the get-go? Or should I base how I'm going to play off of how my opponent throws?
Honestly, I've heard both from the pro
Okay.
level. I've heard pros that say, I'm playing my game no matter what. So if I want to clean board, I'm just going to make sure the board's always clean. I don't care what they do, right? I've
Okay.
seen that people who are going to push through any bag, relatively closer to the hole, and who have already made the decision they're running bags and they're going to put as many in, and if bags get in the way, they're going through it. And then I've heard pros say that they will see what the opponent does, or they actually know because they've played people so many times.
Right.
I know this person's going to do this kind of game, and so I'm just going to prepare to handle that style of game. But I think that whichever one you choose, it's still an automated type of route that you're going, because
Okay.
if somebody throws a block game, like you said, block, roll, push through, that's still a predictable situation, assuming the bags do what you guys want them to do. But that's the intention, right?
Sure.
So you're going to have a center block most likely that you have to deal with, and then depending on who went first, you might have a clean board for your last bag. And so knowing that, you kind of I would have kind of a game plan based on where bags land and what you do automatically. So it doesn't necessarily so much matter who your opponent is and what style they're throwing, as much as it is what do you do in situation A, B, C, D, E, F. So if it's a level 1 block center, I'm always going to X. If
Okay.
it's slightly off to the left, then I Y. Or if the game is if they're bag runners and the game's getting away from me and it's 12-0, then I am someone who just doubles down and just wait for their miss, or I'm the person who's going to start blocking. Like, the most important thing is that most of that analysis is done before, so that you already have an idea of what you're going to do in every situation. And I know I'm not like I don't have a sports background, but can you find an equivalent of this in a different sport, of kind of what I'm talking about, like, and how you would do that in a different kind of sport, that approach?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think basketball, we just had March Madness happen. And yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of those games. But going back to when I played, if we had the scouting report and we knew this team was going to, on a make basket, they are going to full court press us a 2-2-1, then it was okay. We know who's going to inbound it. We need to get somebody to the middle. That way, when they start collapsing, then we can run up and down the sidelines and go from there. So it's kind of in the same, I guess, premise, of, okay, if they're going to or if they're going to run a 1-3-1, then we know we need to split the guards to make the front guy go. And then once there's that double team, we're able to feed it to the middle and get it to the corners where they only have one defender essentially on the top and bottom. So I guess in a similar situation like that, if I know the player, or if I recognize after 2 rounds, okay, this is what they're doing, being able to make that adjustment and then deciding, okay, if they want to throw a blocker, I'm going to sit right behind them and see what they do with 2 bags in front of the hole. Whereas if there's somebody who I know is missing one way or another, I'm just going to go ahead and run bags because they can't run bags with me, or whatever the case is, and I'll get my 2 points. I'll nickel and dime them here and there. So I guess kind of in that same sense, baseball, I know they made a new ruling about this, but they put the shift on with the infield. If you know a guy only likes to pull the ball to the left side of the field, then chances are the third baseman and shortstop are going to hug closer to that line. The second baseman is going to be playing closer to second base, because the pitcher's probably going to be throwing to get them to hit it to the shortstop, hit it to the third baseman. So they kind of put on the shift that way. So I guess, again, in the same situation, using that same mentality from those other sports and just going ahead and applying that to cornhole and the boards, whether they're dirty or not.
Yeah, so I kind of think of that, and that's perfect. So it's your in your other sports, you see adjustments are made based on what your opponent is doing. So it's like if they're doing this, then we're going to do that. And then I think about in football, obviously I'm no expert, but you practice plays, right?
Hmm.
So you guys have different plays to choose from, and those are practiced over and over and over so that if you call whatever play, then that's what you're doing. And so I kind of think about it like that in cornhole. There's only so many plays or styles or whatever you want to like that they're going to bring to the table, right? They're going to
Right.
run bags, maybe they're a blocker, or so the general style of what occurs on the boards, there's only a few versions of that you could anticipate you'll be dealing with. And so in practice, we're practicing how do you deal with each type of play and overcome it. Or you're like the person I mentioned earlier who's like, no matter what, I'm cleaning the board. Like I don't care. I'm not changing my strategy based on my opponent. I'm just 100% gonna run bags no matter what. And then that's the kind of game that I'm only willing to play, basically.
Right.
Um, and so that's kind of how I think about it. And you see that in other sports as well. So if you have a plan going in with if I see this situation, then this is my mentality or my game plan. If it's this, then I do this. And you don't have to think in the moment, how do I want to handle this? That's going to be more often automated.
Perfect. Perfect. Now here's maybe a goofy question. So with the resets that I have come up with and started to install into my gameplay, is it can I pull the trigger on them too early? And if I do, is that going to be a problem? For instance, if I start off a game, no problem, 10, 12, whatever the case is, third round, I throw a front board and then I follow it up with, a 7 or something like that. If that's only the third round, score might be 2-0 or something like that, and then the next round I'm okay, like should I like at what point should I feel like if something doesn't go right the way I wanted it, should I reset right then and there, or should I wait for the snowball to get going further before I pull the trigger? Because my mind is like, if I don't throw a 12 and I say or kind of do my reset, is that a bad thing that I'm pulling the trigger too early on that, or should I go like kind of case by case? And again, I don't know if that's like a silly or dumb question. I'm just
No,
trying to just
that's
trying
a
to
great.
make just trying to make sure I don't get into a habit or condition myself that every time I throw a 10, I'm trying to reset when it might have just been a slow board or something like that. It might have just, you know,
Well, yeah, I'll take you back to you're not going to throw every bag in the hole.
okay,
So, yeah, so tens aren't bad, nines aren't bad, eights aren't bad. You want to be aware of patterns. So just,
okay,
if that, so there's overreactions and there's proper reactions, and throwing a 10 to me is an overreaction. so
okay,
that's, now if you throw, seven, seven, six, five, six. Now we're like, okay,
oh,
what's what's going on here? But 12, 12, 10. No, I mean, to me, that's an overreaction. And that's where we have to put yourself in check and say, am I really putting the expectation that every bag is going to go in? Because that's unrealistic. So I'll say that first. And then, second of all, with a reset is for a state change. So it's up to you
okay,
to start to recognize when your state changes, and you want to recognize subtle changes. The worry state is going to be when, well, I actually don't even want to define it too much because I'll ask you in a second, but everyone's worry state is slightly different. But you will tend to get kind of like, hot. You might notice anger, you might notice fight, flight, freeze, stuff like that. So if you can put yourself in a situation in a recent game when you feel like you fully dove into the worry state and things spiraled, how would you describe how you felt in that state versus like a flow state?
gotcha. Yeah, no, uh, face gets red and I almost feel embarrassed just because I threw a 7 or I
Mhm.
threw a 2. I front board
Yeah.
the first 2, and then the other 2 don't want to go in. And that's actually how I started one of the rounders was we did 2 down and backs, and when I'm doing a down and back, I'm chill. But then as
Yeah.
soon as you tap knuckles, something switches. So then
But
it's like,
what?
okay,
Stop there. Stop there. What do you notice? You tap knuckles, and then what? What happens physically in the body?
physically, it's I don't want to say it's a lockup, but it's more like as soon as tap knuckles and we're ready to go, I feel like I have to aim the bag as opposed to just throw it, if that makes sense.
But take it back even a step before that. If you were to really go into the body, like what's going on with your, does your heart rate accelerate? Do you
Oh,
feel hotter?
yeah,
Yeah.
heart rate's definitely up, and um, I'm probably holding my breath because if I get through that first round with a 10, with a 12, there's a big sigh of relief. Like, okay,
Mhm.
you know how the bags are going on the board, which you should know doing. That's why you do your down and backs sometimes too, is to figure out what the boards are doing. So
Didn't I just do that?
yeah, and it's so because yeah, I literally I threw 2 front boards and I yelled down to my partner. I said, "These bags got heavy all of a sudden." With the same bags, I've thrown them a million and one times, and then the other 2 went in front, and I think it was a 10-on-2 or something like that. So as soon as if I give up, I'd say probably 4 or more points in a round, 12-8, whatever the case is, that's when I feel I'm going into that worry state because in my opinion, you can 2s and 3s won't really hurt you. Giving up a penny here or there in a round, but man, when you give up 5 or you give up, 6 or 7, 12 on 5 or something, those rounds, especially I've noticed at the tier 1 at, watching the pro level, those are the ones that seem to be tough to come back. Not saying that it's impossible to come back from, but even some of the best, they'll be tied 3-3 through 20 rounds. They'll give up a 7,
Mhm.
then it's 10-3, and then all of a sudden their demeanor might change, or they're trying to do something that maybe is out of their comfort zone. And I know I fall into that
Yeah.
category.
There's a lot to unpack right there.
Sorry,
Okay.
yeah.
No, that's good. It's great. I just don't want to make sure I don't forget anything because okay, let me just bullet point. So I want to talk about the performance state, which is what happens after the down and back and why it's different than the down and back. I want to talk about the worry state. And then I want to talk about what you just said was, when you get down and then it changes the state into the worry state and what we could do there. So I'm going to name all that in case I lose myself through those 3 bullet points. So
Perfect.
number 1, the performance state. That's different than throwing with grandma in your backyard. It's different than a down and back. It's a performance state. Performance state means it matters. When it matters, you will automatically feel the acceleration of your heart rate. You'll feel the excitement. In other sports that you've played, like in basketball, do you guys you wait to run out and announce you run out in the court or whatever, and then I don't know, how does the game start? Clearly I don't play other sports. So
Yeah,
tell me
no,
about how that starts when you play basketball.
yeah, so I mean, just like you have your warm-ups where you'll do your layup drills, you have your shooting drills and everything, and then they will announce you'll see the starting lineup, you'll see who you're going up against, and you have the scouting report, 21's the shooter, number 3's the point guard, make them go left, et cetera, et cetera. And then as soon as that tip-off is getting ready to happen, if I'm in the game, the heart's rate, if I'm on the bench, even when I was coaching, like my knees bouncing, I got the bouncy knee and stuff like that, like the adrenaline's going. And then,
Okay, so
it's a
how is
couple.
that different, that feeling right there that you just described? So
Yep.
your heart rate, you're bouncing, whatever. Okay, is that the same or different than after the down and back, the fist bump, I should say?
Yeah. No, the heart rate is 100% up, and the
But the feeling, like whatever feeling you had when you started basketball, is that the same feeling as when you start a cornhole game after the
uh
fist bump?
absolutely. And when the big time shots come too, and I might be getting ahead of myself, but that feeling too, that's one of the reasons why I love and continue to get better in cornhole, is because I love chasing that feeling when you have to, you're down
Yes.
you're down by 2 and there's 3 seconds left and you got to make the 3-pointer, that experience in the game. Every kid wants to be in that situation. And then when you beat the buzzer, the buzzer beater's fantastic. Having to make a shot or having to hit an airmail backside or push shot when the game matters, that adrenaline is it's addicting. And that's
So
the chase
that's that feeling that you have after the fist bump. Everything you just described. So that is not a threat, right? It's not a threat response. So you love it. You love it. That's why you do it. You literally chase that feeling right there at the beginning of the game. So the first sort of pivot in your mind is just, this is what it feels like to be in the game. Like, I'm excited, game on, right? Not a threat. This is the heart racing, all of that. That's how I know I'm started. And I've played many other sports from this state and started off great. Like, this is the state that I thrive in. So making that a positive thing, as opposed to, because nerves have similar physiological feelings, heart racing, get hot, but it doesn't have to be nerves. It could be excitement. And we're going to guess that yours is excitement. But if you're afraid of it and you don't think you should feel that way, and you think it should feel like you're down and back, or you think it should feel like playing in your backyard with grandma, now all of a sudden that's a threat. Like, oh, my heart's racing. I'm feeling hot. Like, this means something. And then we make that a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. You've done it in every other sport, right?
Wow.
That's how you know you're starting. So it's exciting. So you're like, I got this. And now the downside of cornhole is you're not running. It really helps to be able to run when you have all that adrenaline.
Yeah.
In cornhole, we're staying still. So don't be afraid to bounce a little bit, or kind of, move a little bit, because you do have all this adrenaline, which is normal and expected because you care and you're excited and you love this. So that's the performance state. That's why you do what you do, because you love it. So don't be afraid of the performance state, and don't expect it to feel like when you don't care, right? When you're just throwing, because it's not. But because we're in a precision game, if your adrenaline is pumping and we don't take a deep breath and just kind of calm the body down before we throw, we could hold the bag, a second longer, release it too far. Like, you see it on broadcast, right?
All the time.
That first bag soars off, right? All the adrenaline. So this is where you have to really get to know yourself. So all that good feeling, is that the perfect state to throw in, or do you need a deep breath before you actually release the bag, because that adrenaline is going to do something crazy with your mechanics, right? Feel all that. I'm stepping into the performance state. This is good. And then you might need not a full reset, but just like, I need to bring my heart rate down a little bit because I'm not running. So I don't have anywhere for this energy to go. So it's going to go into my bag, and that's not good. So
Yeah.
So just play around with that and see what works, but don't be afraid of that performance state. That's what you want. That's how you play well. It's not a threat. It's only a threat if you think you shouldn't be feeling it. And that's crazy. Like, why would you be doing this if it felt like a down and back?
Right. No, that's awesome.
And then the worry state. So you talked about when you front board, 2 on the board, and then that could trigger a worry state. And the worry state sometimes can feel similar to that performance, like anxiety type state. But the difference is that it's a threat. It feels like a threat. So you're like, I'm not doing well. This is bad. I just lost 7 points, whatever. So you have all these thoughts that make that feeling threatening, as opposed to, I've got this, I can handle this, whatever those, that's the challenge thoughts, right? Like, this is a challenge, which is why I do this, because I like to be challenged and I can handle this challenge, versus this is bad. This is Mayday. This is SOS. We're in trouble. I forgot how to throw, whatever. So those thoughts are really going to dictate whether or not you need a reset. If you have a bad round and you think, got this, like, no thing, then you're not in the worry state. You're trusting yourself and you're fine. It's when those thoughts start to lead you into a bad place that you're like, okay, this is not a place to throw from. I need to check myself here, because this will not be productive at all. I can't be thinking I'm not going to make this and then throw a bag. That's not right. That's not ideal. So that's that. And then the last thing, you're down a lot of points or you give up a big round. Just remember that we don't control the outcome. So our goal is never to win. It's to play our best game. And one round doesn't mean you didn't play your best game. So when that happens, you're just reminding yourself, I can still play my best game. It's just one round. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to win, because that's out of your control. But if you start thinking about, oh my God, how am I going to make up 10 points, or how am I going to win this game? It's not in your control anyway, because they could easily also give up 7 points 2 rounds later. You can't predict that, right?
Very
So
true.
you're going to stay away from all of that. You're just going to stay in the, all I can do is play my best cornhole, and 1 bad round, 2 bad rounds does not equal bad cornhole. So I'm just going to lock back in and just play my best cornhole. And whatever happens, I can be happy that I did a great reset. I bounced back. I didn't let it derail me. And if they win, they win. That's the game. You're not going to win every game. But if you start to panic about how am I going to win, that's going to set you up in a really bad spot, because it's not in your control anyway. And now so the perception is it's in your control when it's 0-0 or 20-20, right? You're like, oh, it's a close game. It's in my control, but it was never in your control. And then when it's 20-0, you're very aware that it's not in your control. And then that becomes uncomfortable, but it never was in the first place. So we just have to accept that it's never in our control, whether it's 20-20, 0-0, 20-0, none of it's in our control. All we can do is play our best game with the bag in our hand. That's all we have, is this one bag in our hand. We can't think about the ones before it, the ones after it. It's just this one. Can I put this one in the hole? This one close to the hole, this one wherever I'm trying to do with it. And then it's the next one. It's just one bag at a time, and everything else is completely out of your control.
Perfect. Love it.
Cool. So anything else? Because I blew through all 3 of those, so I didn't want to forget. So
No,
anything about, we kind of breezed through the worry state. Anything there that you have more clarification on for when to use a reset and the worry state?
no, I like I just wrote down and underlined to look for patterns. Like you said, 12s, 10s, whatever. Don't be nines. You have a whoopsie bag that happens to fly off or gets knocked off. It is what it is. But if you start to notice 8, 7, 6, 6, 6, and it's like, okay, what's going on? That's the timeout. That's the reset, whatever it is. And okay, let's get back to, putting 2, 3 in the hole, as opposed to just having them sit on the board and waiting for something to get knocked in. So I really like that. And that's something tangible that I can see and notice that, okay, let me reset. But yeah, and going back to the not every bag in the hole, like throw nothing but 10s, you're in good shape, kind of thing. And that's easy to forget, because I guess too is the pipe dream of, you watch some of these rounds that go, or some of these games that go 50 rounds or 40 rounds, and the bag in percentage is like 90 some percent, and you're like, I can do that too now, maybe with time, but it's not the reality. And you can still score 2 points with a 10. You can still score 2 points with an 8. It's just how the game's going. But trying to get away from that mentality that, like, hey, every bag's got to be in, is also going to probably help me, and obviously a lot of other people, especially people maybe who are just starting out or just averaging 6 and 7s, and they're thinking, oh, that's got to be more, it's got to be more. But like, that's not the case. And that's good.
Yeah, and plus our goal for you is 9.75. So
9.75 is the goal.
So, right.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I think that's also what to remind yourself of too, is like, we didn't say, okay, Joe, your goal is to throw a 12 average.
100%.
That would, or even an 11 average. Like I mean, pros hit 11s, but I don't think that they go in. I don't think they go into the tournament thinking, I'm going to throw an 11.5 on the day. Like, it can happen, but I don't think that that's what they're assuming is going to happen. I think they're going in saying, I know I need to throw at least, over a 10 in order to compete. And then whatever happens after that is great. But I would assume they don't go in thinking, I'm going to throw a 12 or an 11.5 on the day or something crazy like that.
Right. No, that's good.
And that's the top, right? So,
yes.
No offense to you, but
No,
they're
that's
not doing it.
100%, 100%. I guess
Okay.
it's, yeah, I guess the, I don't want to say the old adage of like manifesting it into, like, oh, I know I can throw this, because it's, you
Mm.
have those days where, yeah, I'm throwing mid to high 10, so why can't I step it up after that? But then the consistency is like, no, you're still right around a 9. So trying to find that middle ground where um that I am throwing just under a 10, above a 9.5, like, I think that needs to be the comfort zone until I'm there, absolutely
Well, you
consistent.
want the right amount of pressure. So there's too
Right.
little pressure and too much pressure. And so if too little pressure is like, hey, I'm just going to go in and, try to throw the bag on the board. That makes no sense for you, right? That's
Right.
a crazy goal for you to have. It's also crazy to expect something way above your average. Push your average, but don't go in way above. Like you're gonna throw 10 point something games because your average is somewhere around the mid nines, and so you're gonna have games like I am a 6-ish PPR, right? I
Right.
still can throw 10s and 12s. I just also throw 3s and 4s and 5s. So that's how we end up. I don't throw a 6 because I throw 6 points every time.
Right.
It's
Right.
because it averages. I have a huge floor to ceiling, right? I think if you look at someone who's in a 6 PPR range who's been playing for a long time, they probably are like me. High ceiling, low floor, right? And then as you get better, that keeps shrinking and moving towards this side. So you have high ceiling, not as low of floor, but you still have a floor that might be in the 7s, right?
Right.
I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
So yes, you're going to have 10.5 games, and you also might have a 7 or 8. And that's how we average to a 9. I doubt you're just always throwing 9s.
Right. Yeah. No.
It's going to swing, right? And so if you look at pros, their floor to ceiling is from like a 9.5 to an 11.5. Like it's way up on the top end. You don't see them throw even an 8 hardly ever on
Right.
a game. And so they average out in the high mid 10s. So just remember that we're talking about averages. So when you have a really good game, instead of using that as evidence as to why can't I do this all the time, just
Mm.
reminding yourself, like, look how high my ceiling is. Like, how cool is that? Right?
Right.
And you're
That's
going to
good.
incrementally move your floor. And that's the goal. You just keep moving that floor so that it gets smaller and smaller. And then that 10.5, is something you're doing more often. And then it's balanced by maybe a quote unquote bad game, which is a 9 versus a 7. But just use those good games not as evidence for how you're failing, but evidence as to what's possible and how high your ceiling is and how cool that is. And I think I haven't studied it, but I would imagine that as you close that gap, that floor to ceiling, that you automatically raise your ceiling. I would imagine it just kind of moves incrementally like that.
Yeah. That's good. Love it.
So it's a good thing. That's positive, positive. And then those bad rounds are just like, yeah, that's why I'm averaging a 9. Makes sense. That's how we got here.
Right.
That's okay.
100%.
That's the game. So, incrementally over time, that floor will continue to get smaller and smaller. And you won't have those dramatic swings, but you're like, oh yeah, I'm human and this is about where I'm averaging, and that makes sense. That makes sense. This good game, that makes sense. The not so good game. But if you are consistently throwing below your floor in a tournament, that's when you need a pretty big reset, because you're like, this is way below what I normally do, even on my worst. So something's off, and then that's when you could use a good reset. I guess you could say that's true for a game as well. If you're kind of in your head going, I think I'm averaging like 4 or 5. Like this is crazy. Then
Right.
probably need a pretty big reset there.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, going back to a couple regionals, we made it to the king seat match. My partner was throwing mid to high 10s. I think I was throwing a 6 something, but we were winning. And that was, it was such a mixture of emotion because we were getting ready to play against it was against Colin Hodette and Gage Landis. So I was like, okay,
Lovely.
this is going to be awesome. And one of the guys told me, he's like, yeah, stay hot, Joe. And I was like, I kind of had a question and a look on my face, because I was like, I'm throwing like a 6.85 right now. He's like, oh no, oh, yeah. He's like, I know you're throwing a 6.85, but you're here and I'm not. So it's like I felt so bad, because if I had been throwing my average, who knows what would have happened, but I think we ended up taking third after losing that game to them. But yeah, I mean, that's, I think, also too, when it hurts, because I should be happy that we're winning and that we're advancing in the brackets. But if I'm not pulling my end, that I put extra like stress and pressure on myself for that. I feel, and I don't want to say, well, I'd rather throw an 11.5 and go 0-2, because that's, you know what I mean? Like, so
I think you would, though. I think that's actually true. This comes back to what I keep telling you, is not to be attached to the outcome, which that means win or lose, right?
right,
Like, if you want to be the best cornhole player you can possibly be, you're always playing just against yourself. So it makes sense that you come into a game and you win. Cool, that's the outcome that you wanted, but you didn't meet your personal goals in that game. And
right,
that's what you're trying to do to get better. So I do think if you threw an 11.5 and lost, you'd say, well, man, I just got beat by an amazing player. Like, that, there's nothing I could do about that. That's the best I could possibly throw.
right.
If they're better on that day or in that game, and then it happens, right? It's just that game. So you throw a 10.5 and they throw an 11.5, and you're like, damn. And then you look at their next game and they threw an 8.5, and you're like, what the hell? Like, where was that? When you
Right,
threw
right.
against me? So
No,
if that's their game to win, that's their game to win, right? There's nothing you can do about that. But I
gotcha.
don't think
So
you'd be
just
mad at yourself.
all
It's
right,
like, that's
focus
it.
on individual. Don't worry about the outcome. Okay, I'm just gonna keep saying that to myself. Write it down. I'll have it in my pocket, just because that's so good. And like I said, yeah, it was nice to advance, but you know, when I'm throwing well below, like, if I focus on myself, the outcome will take care of itself, but not to worry about the outcome. Just focus on my goal, 975. That's where I need to
Yeah.
stay. Where I need to stay. Okay.
Yeah, and then if you do have a game like that where you're throwing well below your floor, and then the game is over and you have another game coming up, that's the time when you can say, "Oh, this is such a great opportunity for me to practice a reset. Let's see
Yeah.
if I can shift my state after what I would consider to be my worst performance into my best performance." Like we talked about with Logan Chamberlain, going from a 7 poor game to an 11 plus game and winning the whole thing, right? That
Right.
shift that he made between games not only made him throw better in the next game, but he swept the weekend. So those lows can be the best thing that ever happens to you, because whatever that triggered in him, that he was like, F this, this ain't happening, right? Like, I don't know. I haven't asked him what he did, but that poor performance fueled something in him that made him the best player of the weekend. So just know that those really low lows are on the opposite side of the spectrum of a really high high, which means they both exist, and you could
Yep.
easily turn that into the other. And sometimes I would even argue is the best fuel to make that happen. Like, that is actually what you needed to be your best self that day. You needed that super low, like, this is not happening. I am not cool with this. And if you can use that as fuel, then you'll probably have your best tournament of your life. But you can't let it dictate your state. Like, you feel it, you're human, like that sucked, but then you use it and you say, well, it's on now. Now I'm really diving into this performance version of me. Like you talked about the big shots and that state you're in for a big shot. It's like, that's going to trigger it right away. Like, oh, here I come. Watch out.
Perfect. Love it.
So not necessarily a bad thing. But I do agree with you that, you're going to not be happy with a poor performance, even if the outcome is a win, because this is all about your personal growth as a person and a player. And that is not your that's not moving that in the direction that you want.
Right. Correct. Perfect.
Okay, what else? What else? Oh, the other thing I wanted to say was that performance state that we're talking about, really recognizing that when you're starting your games, and if you can even reflect on times when you can feel that you tapped into that and it was really, really successful, and times that you've tapped into that and it wasn't, if you can figure out the difference, that will be a pretty big game changer for you. Because when you go into the Cleveland Open, that's different than a local event. That performance state is going to be different than at your local event. So it's just trying to prepare as much as you can for that feeling that you're going to feel. I don't believe in the treat this as any other game. It's like you're in your backyard. I don't think that works because it's too much of a lie. Like, but I'm
Right.
not. I'm not in my
Right.
backyard. This matters. So I'd like you to be as mentally prepared. And so when you're going to your events now, leading up to that, really recognize what happens after that fist bump, and so that you can be so ready for it when you feel it inevitably in Cleveland.
Perfect. Yeah, I have a regional this weekend, so I mean that I'm looking forward to that specifically. More or less for I guess for singles, doubles. I'm not teaming with my normal partner, but I'm still the mentality is I'm throwing my game. I'm focusing on how I'm throwing. But yes, with singles, like I said, I've gone 0-2 in tier one every single time, and I'm trying to break that hump.
Well, you weren't
And
0-2, but what were your stats?
uh probably high to mid eights, give or take.
Okay.
Nothing too crazy. Tier twos I've placed just about every single time with singles. But now tier
Same
one, there's been a
stats
lot.
or better stats?
Um, I honestly probably about the same.
Okay.
Whereas an 8-9-5 in tier two is getting you to the king seed, and or you're playing for it. I might score 7 points in tier one with with an 8-9-5. So now it's okay. I have to be able to realize where I'm at, what game I'm going to play, which now I have these tools to be able to use, to be able to implement and practice. Whereas before it was just like, hopefully these bags go in kind of thing. And you know, if I have to win 6-5 and get a point here or there, do it. But it's I'm really curious to see how I do, obviously physically, but just mentally, um, in the next regional, and then obviously leading up to the Open, with these tools that I now have at my disposal.
Yes, I'm actually surprised because I would think if you're playing in tier two, you would have a different state, because it's like, okay, I know that I have enough to make this happen here. Like I know that even my not my best stuff can get me pretty far,
Hmm.
versus in tier one, you're like, I literally have to bring my absolute ceiling in order to progress. So I would assume that that would reflect in the stats. But if you're saying that they're the same, um, but that still, it sounds like underperforming from your average in like local events.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I guess according to I think my ACL PPR is like an 8.63 or something like that. But that's what I feel way under what I should be. Again, my personal opinion and based on how I've played in other stats is a 9.5, and I think an 8.5 would be an absolute worst case scenario game. But um, I know too in singles, the reason I kind of like it sometimes a little better than doubles is I have my bag, so I know what they do. But it's just I'm not performing at that higher level. Whereas in doubles, I have a partner who's able to assist me. but we're also using his bag, so he knows what they're going to do, and I kind of just try to figure it out as it goes. And so again, that's just me putting too much stock into the equipment and trying to put a blame or something on why I don't perform as well in doubles as I feel like I do in singles with my bags. But I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm at in that, I guess,
No, I
instance.
mean, it makes sense I would, if you're not, if you have 5,000 reps on your bags and 500 reps on the other bags, why wouldn't you feel better with the ones with more reps, right? That's
Right.
sort of
But
common
it's
sense.
sure. So, but if my partner is used to their bags and throws their bags better than I throw my bags, in my opinion, that should be like the bag selection we should use, right? Or because I mean that's kind of the other thing too, that sometimes like if you get into now, I know like we don't want to spend too much on like the local with like the blind draws and stuff, but in a blind draw situation, if I am the A player, do I throw my bags because I'm the A player, or should I concede and throw whatever the B player's bags are? Because one, I should be able to throw anything, and two, they might feel more confident with those bags. So I guess it's kind of that mentality where I feel like I'm the B player in our doubles team. So I'm going to concede to his bags because I know he can throw really well. And if I can sneak out a point here or there, I just want to get the bags back to them. But that kind of defeats, I guess, my purpose of I need to play my best game, but I can't necessarily do that with equipment that I'm not very familiar or on a less familiar with than what
Yeah.
I use. Or am I thinking way too much into that?
No, I think it's so valid. I mean, in local events, you have to decide whether or not that game is I'm trying to throw my best stuff here, or I just want to have fun and help this person have a good time. And if it's the latter, then you use their bags. And if you
Okay.
are like, hey, do you mind if we use my bags? I'm just trying to see if I can, really work on some stuff in my game right now. So I'm just trying to kind of rep some stuff with my bags. It's not I throw better or not I have a better chance of winning. It's what's the goal for that game for you personally, not the outcome, but like what you want it to look and feel like. And so
Gotcha.
if you're like, I'm trying to hit my absolute ceiling, then you need to have your bags. If it's like I said, it's like someone new and they have bags and you're like, hey, let's just have a great time. Like, then it's like you're not going to throw your best. And that's fine because that's not the goal. Um, with doubles, you have decisions to make, right? You can try to find someone that throws the exact same bags as you, and that eliminates that problem. That's going to be
Right.
probably pretty hard to do. So then you have the situation you're in, which is, well, whose bags do we get to throw? I would say whoever has the better ability to adjust is the one who you concede to the other person's bags. I would imagine, and I actually think he's talked about it, like Mark Richards throwing not his bags in doubles. And he says, I'm just great at adjusting. If your thought is, I'm great at adjusting, then you're going to be a lot more successful. However, it's still an adjustment, right? It's no
Right.
different than when we talked about board speeds. And I want to say that I heard that Mark Richards does practice with those types of bags. Now, don't quote me on that. I can't remember where I heard that, but that would be, like I said, that's what I would do. If I had a doubles partner and I was playing with them consistently, I would want a set of their bags so that I could start repping it, so that I
Just
could
rep.
feel more confident when I go in. And then, even better would be if I think I'm the best at adjusting, what would be even better is if I could adjust to their bags and use them in singles as well. Now you're really going to build your confidence. Now, I'm not saying
Right.
do that. It's just things to think about, because if you don't plan and prepare for that, then you're really rolling the dice at the time that it matters the most. So you at least need to have a plan. Like,
Okay.
I'm going in, we're throwing his bags, and that's fine because I'm great at adjusting. Like, that's the mentality. Or we're going to be throwing his bags, so I'm going to practice with his bags for the next month, right? But some kind of plan so that you don't just go in going, well, hope it goes well.
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
my
No, that
bags, but like, let's just hope I can get the bags back to him so he can do his stuff. Like, that's not a good place to be. There's no way you're going to become a better player with that mentality. So if you say, my goal is to throw his bags at a 9.25, and then you start working at that goal, maybe that's one way to kind of alleviate some of the pressure, but still hold yourself to a challenge that's doable. If that was the number, I'm just making up a number, but
no,
um,
that's good.
and if you're way below that, then you need to go back to the drawing board and say, what can I do so that I can throw better with these other kinds of bags? Like, what needs to change? You might have to, like I said, if this was a a doubles partner you're committing to long term, then it would be worth putting in the effort and work to master those bags.
Right. Right. Okay.
So
No,
just
that's
some decisions there. In Cleveland, you're throwing his bags, yes?
yes. Yeah, I believe that's the plan. He had them, I think he like washed them and stuff because they when we first started throwing them, I believe they're Reynolds Pro X's. And when we first started throwing them, they were moving nice, but then they got super duper tacky. So
Yeah.
when I would go to throw a regular bag, it would hit and kick to the left on me. So everything was missing to the left. So I was like, all right, I'll just go flip it over fast side and just run bags. And because I don't normally hit center, I normally hit because my bag will kick a little bit. They were just going straight off the board and I wasn't catching anything. So again, mentally and everything was just not having it. And I think we eventually we did make a slight bag change, and I proceeded to throw better once. But I guess maybe that's another question too. Is since there are 6 rounders at the Open in Cleveland. Do we throw 4 and 2, where 4 with his, 2 with mine, or should we try to stick to as
Yeah,
consistent as
you want to be as
possible?
confident. Yeah, you want to be as confident as possible going into the bracket. So you need to have as many reps as possible, and you want to have the state and the idea of like when we get into bracket, we've got this. And
Okay.
if you have to switch bags from rounders to bracket, then you won't feel that way.
Okay.
I mean, it would not that you won't feel that way, but it'd be a really large mental hurdle to overcome. Is you see it all the time with pros, and they're just changing bag color. But
Yeah.
it's like they're like, I threw these all day and now I have to throw this other color. And that's even an adjustment mentally. And it's the same
Sure.
bag. So just imagine if you had to, if you let's say you threw like your best 2 games and then you had to switch to other bags, like mentally to try to overcome that it'd be pretty challenging. So I definitely now what you could do is let's say the first game you guys both realize, oh my God, these bags are way too slow. And then you both agree we're throwing different bags. And then maybe you get into game 5 or 6 and it's like, oh no, the temperature changed. And now we like that makes sense. Like changing
Okay.
bags based on conditions,
Okay.
um, but not just for the sake of changing. You really want to stick to something where you can feel like you can predict how it's going to go as much as possible and like feeling confident in your ability to work with the equipment.
Perfect. No, that's good.
But if you can, I mean, I don't know how much time you have to practice with him and those bags prior to Cleveland, but as many reps as you can get in as possible, just to prove to yourself, um, I can throw in the 9s. I can even throw in the 10s with these bags. They're not my bags, but this is still what the data that I'm getting from them.
Okay.
But if
Perfect.
you're like, I'm throwing in the 7s with these bags, that's going to be extremely difficult to have your best performance if the data is telling you something that's so far from what you want and need.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I play around with that in a couple of weeks leading up to it. How far off? Like, what do you throw? How far off are these bags from your normal bags?
I throw RBC judges. So they're, I don't know, 5.5, 8.5, and they're a carpet, but they feel good in hand, and I know when they grab right, right to left, how they go. Air mails are clean. The slick side's just slick enough that it'll go to push through bags. I mean, I absolutely love it. And I like the Pro X. Like I said, was throwing the pro axes really, really well. I just don't know as we were throwing them more and more, if they got tackier or if it was just the last couple places we played where the humidity was higher, the boards were sticky, or whatever the case was.
Yeah.
And just trying to be able to make that adjustment. Yeah, just they were. And I think the fill might be a little. I'm not. I wish I was a little bit more in tune with the fill and the different things like that, because I think the pro axes are a little bouncier. So when I do try to throw a cut, it really takes off and rolls and almost is like a regular roll bag, which I don't normally throw. So when it does that, it's more of just an accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Happy
not that
accident.
happy accident, 100%.
Okay, we're okay with a happy accident. I'm good with that. All right, so like I said, we have one session after this. So before we wrap up here, just when you think about competing in a couple weeks, what comes up for you that is there anything that comes up for you that you think I really need to work through this so that I'm not feeling this way or not thinking these things? Like, is there anything like hanging out that you think could get in the way of your performance as we gear up for, a higher pressure situation?
Yeah, and we can touch on it maybe a little bit now, maybe revisit it too. Waiting time in between games. Sometimes, especially if you're in the losers bracket but you're winning, your match is right up 5 minutes after the fact, just because they're trying to play catch up to the winners bracket. Whereas if you're making your way through the upper bracket, you might have 20 minutes, sometimes a half hour in between, just because you're waiting for a court or waiting for the backup. Now, obviously, at a smaller setting, there's only so many boards and open. I'm assuming it's probably not that long of a
Well, a
wait time.
rounders, the whole round has to finish. So if you're the first game, let's just say it starts at noon. If you're
Right.
in noon, you're not going to play your next game until the entire round finishes, which is usually an hour.
Gotcha.
So now if you're at the end of that rounder and then for some reason we're at the beginning of the next one, then there wouldn't be, but you could plan on a pretty good chunk of time in between rounds when you're in rounders for
Okay.
sure.
Okay, because I've only been to one open. It was actually in Canton a couple years ago, and I think I just did the blind draw and single. So with the whole
Okay.
doubles, I mean, that's going to be a whole new ball game, the 6 rounders, and then being seeded and everything like that. So that'll be a new thing. So I guess, yeah, if there is going to be a wait time between that, say I throw really good, say at 10.5 first game, win or lose doesn't matter, but threw really good. Now I have to wait 45 minutes. Should I sit, rest my arm, drink some water, maybe grab a snack? Should I find an open board and throw? Because I feel like sometimes I try to find a balance between both, but I don't want to get cold, but I also don't want to throw my arm off waiting for the next matchup. So, are there any tips, tricks, or things I can be doing, maybe not necessarily physically, but mentally, to get ready for that next match if it's 45 minutes from when I just threw?
Well, physically, like your body didn't forget how to throw in an hour, so
Okay.
I'm not too worried about. I think that the warm-ups that we do is more for our mental than a physical. You've seen players not play for 3 weeks and come in and throw incredible. So it's not like our body forgets how to do it. So I'll just remind you of that in case there's situations
Okay.
where you can't throw when you
Okay.
feel like you should be. Like, okay, my body didn't forget how to throw. It's okay. Like, we'll be fine. So the proper question to be asking here is, what do I need to do to get into the flow state? It's some people might need 45 minutes of throwing to get into the flow state, right? So, and if that's you, then you're kind of screwed if you can't find a board, and it's also going to be exhausting for the day. So that's what you need to play around with, is that reset that you're creating for when things go wrong. You also need a pre-game routine that creates the ideal state, so that no matter how long or how short it is, you can easily go, okay, it's performance time. So I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and tap into the performance state. And I know as soon as I'm in that performance state, I get my best stuff. And you need to know what that performance state feels like. We talked about when you tap into it and it's very adrenalized, but then it calms down once you get into the game. And you're either going to go into that flow state or the worry state or the play state, but that's probably less likely in this highly competitive environment. So you're basically saying like, okay, the flow is I'm gonna do a down and back, use that down and back as time to get into your state. So maybe that's some mental talk. I'm ready for this. I'm getting locked in, whatever. Maybe you're doing breathing techniques through your down and back that help you get more grounded and centered. Maybe you're doing orienting to the room. Maybe you're doing, I feel my feet on the floor. I feel the bag in my hand. I'm present right here. So any technique that you can use in that time before the game starts, then know that as soon as you fist bump, you already know you have a state change. So it's like, don't be alarmed by that. So maybe you're feeling calm and you're like getting centered and you're getting grounded. You fist bump and all of a sudden your heart's racing. You're like, oh my God, I just lost everything I did. You didn't. That's the normal like game time performance shift. And then you acknowledge it and you use it as excitement and fuel. And like, this means I care and this is great. And now I'm going to go right back into that flow state with my XYZ quick routine and I'm ready to go. So it's actually less about the time unless you have realized and create a pattern where the only way you can lock in is if you throw for 45 minutes and then you're screwed. Because you might not have 45 minutes or you might go, straight from one game to the next. And like, that's when things get really messy.
Yes.
You want to have a plan, a pre-game, a pre-tournament routine, a pre-game routine. A post is great as well. And then, of course, your in-game resets. So these are the kinds of things so you can have a predictable state. You don't ever want to go in and be like, hope I hit my flow state.
Right.
That would be nice. Which is how most people do. They're like, I have no idea how I get into it, so I just hope it happens. And that would drive me crazy going into anything like that. Like if I was going to speak on a stage, which is like my equivalent of what you guys do, and I was like, hope I can lock in. That would not go well for me. Like I have to know, okay, I've got this. I've done this a million times. I'm prepared. I'm good at this. I'm going to take a few deep breaths because I feel my heart racing as the lights turn on and the microphone turns on. And I'm going to take in the moment and be excited that I'm here. And then I'm going to tap into all of my prep and know that I've got this, right? That's kind of my routine. And I do a ton of rehearsing before that, right? So mental rehearsing of what it feels like when the lights are on, when the mic's in my hand, when the crowd is looking. And then I rehearse how just that first sentence, right? Because I know if I can get through that first sentence, everything's going to flow after that, right? But it's like, if the light turns on and I'm like, what am I saying? Right? That's my equivalent of choking, right? It's like, if I forget the words I'm supposed to say or how I'm starting off what I'm going to say, then everything is going to be very difficult to come back from there. So I'm just sitting there going, okay, my first couple sentences that I'm starting off with are this. And I rehearse that over and over, imagining all the pressure, imagining my heart racing, feeling my heart racing, feeling all the eyes on me, and then doing that so many times that when it actually happens, it's something I've done so many times that it's like, yeah, this is familiar. I can do that. I've already done it in my head. I didn't practice it imagining that I was sitting here in my office with nobody looking. I practiced it imagining I had all the pressure. So maybe an exercise for you when you're doing that down and back, you could try. I've never told anybody to do this, so this could be an experiment, but maybe you treat that down and back like it's live, like try to create that performance state then. And then maybe your first real bag feels like your, or first real round feels like your second round. So I don't know, that just came to me. So I have no idea if that works, but it's as much mental rehearsing as if you're going to be sitting there, I'd be mentally rehearsing your first round, your first bag, and watching it with all the pressure and your heart beating fast and your skin feeling hot, and imagining that bag just easily going into the hole over and over and over so that you keep feeling what that is as many times as possible.
Perfect.
Cool. And that's kind of what we'll focus on next week because we're going to be, a week out and just making sure that we're cleaning up anything that you can predict from previous performances that gets in the way so that you just stay in your ideal state for as many games as possible. That's the goal, is just can we be in our ideal state for as long as possible, for as many games as possible. And that's where that mental endurance comes in.
Love it. Perfect.
Awesome. Great work, Joe. And keep me posted during the week. And then I will see you next week.
Sounds good.
Okay.